Hooty hoo, all my stock market gamblers. Welcome today. I'm Tall Mike. So glad you're here. What do we got going on? Well, we still got the cracks in the crack up boom, right? We've had the crack up boom and now we're turning down. The NASDAQ has dropped below its 20-day. The 20-day was support. Now it's resistance, right? Now it's coming down to the 50-day. Now is the 50-day going to hold? That remains to be seen. But if you break through the 50-day, we're just going to head lower. Anyways, right now, you have to get back above that 20-day. That 20-day that was support has now become resistance. Now we're overdue for a bounce. I do believe we will get a bounce. We're going to get a bounce. Probably the NASDAQ will probably bounce off the 50-day and head back up. Now, will it come to a new high? I don't think so. I think the NASDAQ has put in the top. I think we're still in a topping pattern in the Dow Jones, in the S&P, in the IWM, which is the small caps. I think we're still in a topping pattern, but I do think the NASDAQ has peaked, and I think we're starting to come back down. Now, we may get a little run up in the S&P, a little run up in the Dow Jones, because they're still buying the bonds. Now, who's buying the bonds? Well, it's not you, and I know it's not me. It's Fed. Fed's still buying the bonds, right? So they're still trying to push this up higher. We'll see how that all plays out, but right now, the crack up boom does have a few cracks in it. All right. Let's get over to the real estate end of things. Now, on the real estate side, there's the big changes, right? We can no longer, as a real estate broker, I am a real estate broker, I can no longer offer part of my commission to a buying agent to bring the buyer to me, right? I can no longer offer that. That is being removed from the MLS. Now, we'll see how this plays out in the real estate market, but I think this is going to put downward pressure on real estate prices. That's just my take. We'll see how that plays out. Now, a lot of people, if you listen to Barbara Cochran, listen to Dave Ramsey, they tell you real estate can never go down. Now, real estate can go down. It has gone down. The Great Depression dropped about 26%. Great financial crisis dropped about 34%. This crisis that's in the future and coming up, we're going to drop about 50% or more. We'll see how that plays out. Now I'm going to explain why. A lot of people say that is impossible. They say, but Mike, real estate can't go down by 50%. I just bought my house and I'm not going to sell for a penny less than Billy Bob sold it to me at. We'll see how that plays out for that guy, but I think he's going to be selling a lot lower. Okay. All right, so why is real estate going to come down? We got the Fed. The Fed's going to be cutting interest rates. Why are they going to be cutting interest rates? Well, it doesn't make sense, right? The housing market still at record highs. If they cut rates, won't that just make house prices go higher? You listen to Ramsey, he'll tell you it will. I'll tell you no, not going to work that way. Now, here's why they're cutting rates, right? They have to save the banking system. Banking system is getting ready to go down. They got to save the government. The government, we can't pay our bills. We have to print more and more money just to pay the interest on the debt, let alone more money to pay our bills. So the Fed is going to end up cutting rates, about 100% sure by September, right? And they may not do it this month. They may not even do it all. They may wait till September. But in September, we got a 100% chance of a rate cut. Okay, so rates are going to be coming down on the short end of the curve. Long end of the curve, I'm not so sure. I think the long end could start to go back up. That would be re-inverting the yield curve. When you re-invert the yield curve, now keep in mind, that's where bad things start to happen. But I want you to get this next point because very few people understand this, and this is what's going to bring down real estate, right? Okay, so you got businesses out here. They were borrowing money. They were borrowing money hand over fist, right? They borrowed a lot of money, and they borrowed most of it close to 0%. You see, the Fed gives them a special rate. Okay, maybe they had to pay 1%, but right now they got to pay 5, 6%. They cannot afford to pay 5 or 6%. You have what's known as zombie companies. Zombie companies. What are zombie companies, Tom Mike? Well, zombie companies are companies that cannot even bring in enough cash flow to pay the interest on their debt. They already have too much debt. They don't have a viable business plan. Their business plan's broken. The only way they can stay in business is if they go out into the marketplace, borrow more money so they can pay their employees and keep the business going. Even though the business loses money, loses money, loses money. This business should go away. It's a bad investment. It's called malinvestment. But when you have unlimited money supply and you have rates held at zero, these bad investments do happen. But you see, businesses in the next year, in the next 12 months, a huge number of businesses have to roll over their debt. You see, they don't have 30-year loans like you do when you buy a house, right? They have 3-year loans, and a lot of those loans are coming due, right? And they got to refinance. Now, if they can find a loan, you see, they're a very bad risk right now. If they can find a loan, they can't afford the loan because rates, they'd have to pay about 5%. So that is why the Fed is starting to cut the rate. They're starting to cut the rate to save the business. The Fed can see this coming. Anyone with common sense can see this coming. The businesses, they have to refinance. They have to refinance at the higher rate. They can't do it. They can't pay the higher rate. They can't even pay the 1% rate. How can they pay the 5% rate? They cannot afford it. They go farther and farther into debt until they just drop off and they fall over dead and they're bankrupt and they lay everybody off. Now that gets me to the point here. What we're going to see is massive layoffs coming. Massive layoffs coming. You may see 20% of businesses in the S&P 500, they may just go away. They may just go out of money. All these businesses, they got employees, 100, 200 employees, and they're just going to lay them off, lay them off, lay them off, lay them off, lay them off. Some have thousands of employees, 10, 20,000 employees. Lay them off. They're going to go away, right? The jobs are going to go away because they're a bad business model. They can't afford the debt. They can't afford to refinance their loan. No one gives them any credit, so they have to go out of business. And that's what should happen to them. They have a bad business model. So that's why the Fed is lowering rates. So you see how when the Fed lowers rates, that's where the bad stuff starts to happen, because the Fed's not lowering rates out of the kindness of their heart. They're lowering the rates because it's checkmate on them, right? Either they have to let these businesses die off or they have to cut rates really fast. Now, what happens when they cut rates really fast? Well, inflation comes roaring back. So they have a choice to let all the businesses go out of business. Not going to do that one. They're going to lower rates. What's going to happen to inflation? Going to come roaring back. Now, on their benchmark, they said we reached 9% last time. We're going to go way above that because they're going to have to lower these rates back to zero to keep these businesses alive, to keep the job market going. Now, the jobs are going away even as they lower the rates. Even as they lower the rates, the jobs are getting wiped out. It's going to triple the unemployment numbers. You're going to see unemployment, I'd say probably around 10 to 15% unemployment by their standards. I think we're already at 10 to 15%. They'll tell you we're down around 3, maybe 4% right now, but it's going to triple from here. So that 4% going to turn into 12%. The real rate will be more like 20, 25% unemployment. Now, what happens when people are unemployed? Well, they don't get money. Now, they get money for a little while. It's called unemployment. They go collect that unemployment. That unemployment, not enough to make their mortgage payment, so they kind of just let the mortgage go away, and they use the unemployment to eat, right? Because groceries, inflation have gotten very expensive, and they use the unemployment money to go buy food for their family. What happens to the mortgage? Mortgage doesn't get paid. What happens if it doesn't get paid? If it doesn't get paid, the banks are going to come and foreclose. Now, you'll notice right now that we're seeing a lot of evictions. A lot of evictions are happening. Now, what you're going to start to see is a lot of foreclosures. A lot of foreclosures are going to be happening. Why? Because people can't afford to pay their mortgage. And once they're laid off, they're going to stop paying their mortgages, and that's where the banks are going to have to step in and start to foreclose on the properties. But Mike Biden's just going to pay everybody's mortgage. And he may. They may just print the money, right? I don't think so, though. I think the foreclosures are coming. I think the people are going to be dumping the properties onto the marketplace. There's going to be inventory. Inventory is already starting to spike higher. And the bad stuff hasn't hit yet. The bad stuff is coming. That's when you go from unemployment rate 4%, you go to 12%. That's where the bad stuff hits, right? That's where people are out of work. That's where people run out of money. That's where they can't pay their mortgage. That's where they have to sell the house. That's called forced selling. And that's what we had in 2008. People couldn't afford their mortgage, so the banks took it over and they dumped it on the market. Now, right now, a lot of people still have equity in their home. Not everybody. There's already about 10, 20% of houses are already underwater. I know that's shocking, right? And the hottest economy in the world with real estate prices at record highs, how can we have 10 to 20% of mortgages already underwater? People they just bought in the last couple of years. They were told that if they buy now, right, that interest rates would come down, they could refinance. Well, they couldn't afford the mortgages, so they stopped making the payments early, right? They've only made the payments for like 6 months, and now they're already in trouble. They don't know what to do. They're going to have to dump the property onto the market. That's a forced sale. It's a forced sale from someone that just had the property within the last couple of years. Now, as interest rates come down, you have a lot of people struggling that are locked in at 2.8%. I'm sure that you're locked in at 2.8%. Now, you're probably not struggling, but your neighbor may be. Your neighbor may be because he didn't expect this inflation. He didn't expect food prices to be so high. He didn't expect utility bills to be so high. He didn't expect for his insurance to double. He didn't expect for his utility bills to triple. He didn't plan for all this. He doesn't have money, right? So he stopped paying his mortgage, even though he's locked in at 2.8%. He's doing everything he can to hold on to the house. But once the rates start coming back down, let's say they do. Now, I don't believe mortgages are going to come back down, but everybody will tell you they will. So let's say the mortgages come back down. Well, there's no incentive for him to hold the house at that point because 2.8 is 2.8, right? If they come down to that level, you're going to see so many people just dumping their homes on the marketplace. What's that going to do to the price of homes? Price of homes are going to be circling the drain. They're going to be free falling. They're going to be coming down. They're going to crash, right? 40, 50, 60% downward pressure. Now, I know this triggers people. I don't mean to upset anybody. This is just my opinion. You don't like the channel, flick the channel button, right? Go find one. Go listen to Dave. Dave will tell you, great time to buy. Dave will tell you, your house is going to boom. Hold on to it. Dave will tell you these things. I'm not going to tell you something. I'm going to hit you with the truth. I'm going to hit you with the facts. Look, your house is going to lose a lot of value. A lot of equity is going to be wiped out. It's just going to disappear. People aren't going to know what happened. It could happen really fast. I'm talking about from one weekend to the next. One weekend, people are coming out to buy houses. Next weekend, it is a ghost town in the open houses. This thing is circling the drain. You still have a little while. Maybe you can still get out, but I think you already missed it. I think we've seen the peak. I think we're on the downward side. I think we're coming down now. A lot of people say, but Mike, in my area, houses only go up, and that's great, I mean, there's no death, no divorce. Nobody loses a job. Nobody gets relocated. No reason to sell a house in your neighborhood. So they just keep going up. Only buyers come in, no sellers. I think that's going to change. I think it's going to change for a lot of areas. And I think your area is probably going to be one of them. I know my area is already starting to change. Starting to change because of this new real estate law. This new real estate law is not good for the seller, right? Seller can no longer advertise, hey, I've got a house to sell. Could you bring me some buyers? They can't advertise. I'm willing to give away 2.5. I'm willing to give away 3. Make it 4%. I'm willing to give away 4% if you just please bring me a buyer. No, you can't say that anymore. It's illegal. The buyers are going to go away and the sellers can't even advertise for them anymore. This is going to get really sad. I feel sorry for people that waited this long, but if you waited this long, well, hey, you had your reasons, right? And don't get me wrong. If you love your house, you stay there. They're going to come down though, 40, 50%. Now they're going to bounce right back up. I don't think so. I don't think they're going to bounce this time. I think you're a good 5, 10, maybe even 20 years away from hitting the highs that we're at right now. I know that's shocking. I know they're going to print trillions and trillions of dollars trying to reinflate the bubble. That's what they did in 2008. They never let it finish crashing. Look, we lost 34%. 2008 should have gone down to 50% or more. But they said, no, we can't do that. The economy, we got to save it. We got to print trillions. We got to reinflate this asset bubble. Look, it's going to take 10, 20 years for this thing to reinflate this time. This is the big crash. It's an extension expansion of 2008. How low do I think it will go? Well, I think it'll go back to 2012 prices. 2012 is where we bottomed out. Now that may just be a start. We may cut through 2012 prices just like butter, right? I mean, we just may cut right through that and just keep going down. But I think you're going to revert back to the 2012 level. I know I'm just talking crazy stuff. People will tell you that tall Mike straight. I'm okay with that. Look at, I've lost all my friends. That's why I come and talk to you. My friends don't want to hear about this stuff, but you're on my channel, so maybe you want to hear about my point of view. I'm just giving you some facts the way tall Mike sees it. You may see it completely different. You may see it like that Dave guy. Dave sees it where we're going to the moon. I think Dave Ramsey's a moon boy. Just my take. Anyways, if you like this stuff, give me the thumbs up. Punch the subscribe button. Get out to everybody. We'll talk again later in the week. Bye-bye now.